Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Hult's latest episode of Expert Talk, the podcast where we take a deep dive into the ideas, people, and innovation shaping the future of business. Today's episode is titled Stand Out in 2026 Specialized Skills in an AI Market. My name is Ivana Cherninsky, and I'm a current Hult student studying my Bachelor of Business Administration, pursuing my double major in Marketing and Business Analytics. I'm joined today by Professor Patrick Lynch, Hult Professor and AI Faculty Lead. Professor Patrick, why don't you give our audience a quick introduction to yourself and your role here at Hult?
Ivana, fantastic to be with you and everyone today. Thank you so much for having me. I am professor here at Hult. I am focused on AI and strategy topics. I frequently instruct both marketing and business strategy in AI. I'm a former Accenture executive. Maybe you know about that company. And I have a couple of highlights this year I'm really proud about. I recently contributed to the Thinkers 50 book that Hult published. And I also have an upcoming book on my own. So watch for that in 2026.
Awesome. So thank you, Professor. Before we jump in, just a quick reminder that the session is being recorded. So if you need to leave at any point, you'll be able to access the full conversation afterwards through YouTube or through any other platform. To kick off things, I think we need to open the conversation by looking at the impact that AI has made across the workforce. So, Professor Patrick, we know that AI is accelerating the pace of work, but what does this particularly look like in terms of how roles are being reshaped across industries?
Right. I know this is a topic that I get a lot also in my classes, and I get it. It was just April of this year that the CEO of Shopify, and you use Shopify if you're shopping on the internet, I guarantee it, said you cannot hire any more people unless you can prove AI cannot do the job. So that's a significant pivot to maybe the workforce of yesterday, or the way that managers used to justify even hiring new people. And Salesforce, the big CRM company, their CEO said that we are currently using managers that will be the last generation of managers to only manage people. I mean, this is a mind-blowing idea. The reason he shared that is because the future of work will be a combination of you managing people and bots of AI. So they're effectively becoming a new kind of workplace for everyone. And I know that sounds really crazy. So the most provocative idea that I want to share with everyone today, that maybe you can think about what this will mean for work tomorrow, is stop thinking about AI like software. What it really is a new kind of labor. It's a new kind of labor force. And for you as a new employee or eventually a manager, you have to start to think about your role as managing that labor force. And what's crazy about this is you already have access to this talent today. So long as you're using it the appropriate way to augment what you do, you can see how AI makes you better in certain things, not replace. And so I think that organizations are going to be moving away from traditional kinds of jobs because the jobs are going to change and be re-engineered in some new ways, where you're going to be collaborating with bots and people to get these things done. One of the examples that I gave in my TED Talk this last year was how a marketer used to write the copy for an advertisement, maybe then hand it off to somebody else that would do the creative, and yet a third person then would post that online. But today that is one job. That job has expanded, and you're going to need new kinds of skills and creativity, which I think we'll touch on in a little bit, in every single one of those steps. And so I think this is the most important thing, is to build AI literacy so that you can understand what's going on. And that means not only getting an advanced degree, which is a great idea, but also getting stackable credentials. These are going to be skills and abilities that you can post on LinkedIn, because employers are going to be looking for that in these new expanded roles.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Professor. And it's really important for you guys as professors and us as students to have the same mindset, because it's an everyday use. And thank you for setting the scene for us, Professor. While studying at Hult, I've definitely experienced our real world AI projects are woven into our courses. we're actively using AI to solve business challenges. So, following on from that, I think it's clear that AI will continue to reshape roles across industries, especially as we head into the new year. So, Professor Patrick, as a Hult AI faculty lead, what specialized skills should graduates and professionals focus on remain competitive in this rapidly evolving market?
It's a great question. And I've got some good news and some bad news for you. The good news is that we're really talking about these kind of hybrid skills. I just suggested that you start to maybe think about AI as a new kind of labor force. If I offered you an intern to work for you, wouldn't that be great? It's just that to work for this intern, you're going to need two types of skills. The first are very familiar to you. We call these kind of human-centric skills, and they are going to be things like your creativity or your social influence or your ability to communicate. In fact, you mentioned that you've already been participating in these business challenges. You know that at Hult, we're often working in teams. It's not just for convenience. It's a capability that you're building, the ability to communicate with others and adapt and to flex. And so these human kinds of skills are going to be super important. Now, the bad news, there's this other kind of skill that you're going to need, these hybrid skills, and those are the more technical and analytical skills. I know for a lot of people, maybe not you, but there's somebody out there, you're not about the maths, but you're going to need to still lean into those kinds of skills. Deloitte Research recently has posted that in exploring AI technologies, initially they want to hire people with those kinds of technical skills. So that might be you. You might be an individual contributor that has the coding and math kinds of skills that they're going to need. But again, here's the good news about these sort of hybrid skills. Once the businesses start to adopt those systems, they put those AI systems online, they want not just technologists, but strategists. And you know who is in a great position to be in these strategy roles? Are Hultians, both undergrad and postgrad. Because if you have an MBA of any type, any master's degree, you're definitely communicating that you have these kinds of strategy skills on what to do with all those AI systems. Because as much as you might watch in the movies, they just don't run themselves. They very much need you. So these hybrid skills are going to be combining everything that you bring as a person, which is great. And then you're going to be combining that with some kind of technological skill. And that's really the AI acumen that I mentioned you're going to need to do that. What can specifically you do? I would start to look at getting classes and certifications in things like prompt engineering, in data and analytics. You're still going to need that. And even some Python coding or SQL. It's just that you don't want to specialize in any one thing. You have to think about it like an ecosystem, because you're going to be managing people and bots, and it's a give and take. And that's where really the hybrid skills come in. Oftentimes, if I'm asked this question in a class, I tell folks to go out and look at a company you want to work for. What are the requirements in those job postings? And if they're mentioning skills that are specific to a package like Microsoft or to Amazon, like AWS, you want to look for classes and certifications that will give you those skills. So it's not hard to decipher. And I know that we have great career folks that are going to coach you if you're already part of Hult, but you can do a little of this sleuthing yourself and just look to see the kinds of technical packages that they're using for a job that you want. And I would try to get some certifications in that and just lean into what you are. That's the hybrid skills. That's the whole package that you're going to need.
Yeah, absolutely. For example, in my experience as a Hult here in the Boston campus, I can say that most of the classes we're currently using AI, but not as a thing to rely on. Also, I think it would be used as a tool where, for example, in my marketing class, as most of the projects are in teams, we usually do a lot of brainstorming, but then we don't know exactly how to put it in paper or in a written document. So AI usually help us to like put all of our ideas in a common document, or to even brainstorm more ideas. I can say that also in my business analytics class, we do a lot of coding, and of course, we have a lot of errors. So to save us time and of course organize our codes, AI help us a lot by debugging the codes. And it's actually a really helpful tool for professors and for students nowadays. And honestly, having access to AI now, it's super important. It helps us learn how to use it responsibly so we're ready for the real world and can take full advantage of these tools in the future because they're going to be there anyways.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest concerns students and professionals have about AI is the fear of being replaced, as you mentioned before. But as we all know, the real advantage lies on working with AI as a strategic partner rather than a competitor. Professor Patrick, how can students and professionals combine their human strengths like ethical judgment and creativity with AI to upskill and deliver high value outcomes?
Well, I loved your example. I think you're already doing that. And most of our policy, at Hult has always been to adopt these tools appropriately to augment what we're doing. So I think, you're already seeing that in the new kinds of coding that you're doing. There's a word for that. They call it vibe coding. You're using much more natural language now to get these things done, but it doesn't replace your skills. It augments them. So when it's debugging for you, you still have to have the vision for what the software or code needs to do. And you're using the tools to augment that to help speed that up. It doesn't replace. And so you can see that you're already doing that. But on the ethical part and what this is going on, I was doing some reflection on that. And, I've been writing this book that I just mentioned that's going to be coming out. And do you know there's a real trend globally, no matter where you are across the world, that your local officials are looking at different ways that the government and community are going to participate. I found evidence that over 75 countries already had specific policies in these areas. And this is really from Canada to China. And we're seeing immense growth in this in a very short amount of time. Billions and billions are being invested in applying AI. In fact, just recently in the United States, there were even some additional policies that were announced that show how serious the government is taking on adopting these kinds of tools. And there's one way of looking at that of course, I think the incorrect way of looking at that is that it's only going to benefit the few. When you have governments and communities and leaders that are leaning into this, it's meant to help the many. Most countries are leaning into this because it's meant in some way to augment and help the labor force of tomorrow grow. And so I look at these policies and these investments that we can point to as a clear trajectory that is going to help with more kinds of appropriate, even ethical, it has to be ethical, collaboration that's going to help everyone rather than only the few. But that means, of course, that it's not a spectator sport. We have to get involved. And so in a very real way, when I hear that you're using these things in your classes to build new solutions, you are in fact learning what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. You don't want it to just replace what you're doing, but you want to use it to benefit and augment. The way I often describe this in my strategy classes is if you're just copying and pasting something from a bot, so can your competition. And the last time I checked, the only way to compete is to differentiate. And that means that it's all left up to you to do what's right, to what's appropriate. And so when I look at, globally what's happening with policies, especially around labor forces, and you can see we're trying to encourage the workforce of tomorrow to lean into these things. We're encouraged that governments and leaders are looking at the appropriate way to adopt these technologies. I'm encouraged. I'm more encouraged that we are going to do the right thing, because in the end, it'll be us that makes the decision about what's right and wrong. So I think that we're really empowered by that. I'll give you just one quick example here. Recently in Boston, which is the campus that I primarily teach, we had Boston AI Week. And if you look that up on the internet, you're going to see that it was a swath of companies and organizations and learning institutions, including Hult, that participated in this. And we were bringing members of the community together here to talk about the future of AI, not just in education, but in business. And by having conversations like that, and by participating in that, and I know for a fact that we had over 100 Hultians there across the undergrad and postgrad campus attending, we are setting the bar about what's appropriate and what's not. So I'm really encouraged by all the community participation. It's very much ground up as much as top down. And I think that we need to continue to develop that. And that's the best way that we can shape the future of what's appropriate for tomorrow.
Yeah, I feel that it's also a really hot topic, so that everyone, us as students, shouldn't be afraid of the future and what's going on, because at the end of the day, we need to have soft skill as well and take important informed decisions. And it's us that are going to be out there working with it, not relying on it. So thank you, Professor. There almost needs to be kind of a mind shift, I guess. Instead of competing with AI, we should focus on how to develop our own skills and potential through collaboration. So, Professor Patrick, you've highlighted how blending human and AI strengths is key to deliver value. So, let's explore what a little more and look at how AI can be positioned as a growth tool for students and professionals today. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, yeah, the how, I think that we're in the right place. I think it's so great that you're undergrad here, correct, at Hull. So
Yes.
you can see that in the business challenges, which maybe some out there don't know, it's a very applied experience where we have real companies and executives coming in with a business question. And that's the challenge part, what to do about whatever that question is. So I'll share a little bit about, what I see in my classes, even this fall semester. We're currently in the midst of a pharma-focused business challenge. So we have students learning about the pharma industry. Why the pharma industry? Well, if you look across the globe, pharma and healthcare is one of the biggest sectors that are making investments in AI. We don't have to think very far back in our history. Did you see what happened when we needed to collaborate to solve a big problem like the COVID-19 pandemic? I think we all saw that we were able to develop therapies faster than many thought were humanly possible, maybe up to that point, with new kinds of technologies and approaches. So that industry, that sector of healthcare and pharma are really leaning in to new ways that they could apply AI. And that's exactly what we're doing in the business challenge. We're wetting up students to focus on those kinds of industry issues to see how AI could change it even further. And we're just seeing massive, massive growth. I had in my notes here just a couple of ways that they're doing that is by speeding up the research and development. That's good news. That means there's more and better healthcare on the way. They're looking for new ways to have market strategies, not everywhere around the world, but in many places. We need to help teach people the kinds of therapies that are available to help them be well. And we're seeing massive changes in that industry. Some sources are saying 70 to 80% benefit in speeding these things up. So students are very much getting this applied experience right now in the business challenges. And I think that that's the lesson, no matter where you are, no matter what school you're at, and I hope you're here at Hull, is you want to look for having practical ways of applying AI to a certain question that industry is struggling with or industry sees opportunity. And that's really going to help you knit up those skills and make sure that you're relevant for a workplace of tomorrow. So healthcare and pharma is definitely one of those examples that I think the business challenges can show. That's how you can make it a growth tool for yourself to learn those experiences. And that's something that's going to look great on your LinkedIn resume when you're training here at Hull or wherever you are, as you're going forward.
Yeah, and I also can say that me as a student here in Hult, I love that here in Hult we have the opportunity to not only have lectures or readings or homeworks written down, but we also have like actual experience and challenges where we can communicate with companies and see their real struggle right now in the world. And right now AI is of course one of their main topics and struggles. They all want to implement it, but some of them don't know how to. And so it's really important for us to have this in mind and to know how to use it. So, Professor Patrick, you've shared some fascinating insights into the future of work and how AI shape roles and expectations. For our audience listening today, what practical steps can they start implementing tomorrow to help them stand out in an AI driving market?
Yeah, it's a big question, and we have touched on some of this, but I'll give you three things that I think you should start, today if you can. The first is you've got to build your AI literacy. There's lots of different types of AI. The AI definitely has been democratized through the generative kinds of tools like ChatGPT, like Claude, like Copilot that you're seeing in the marketplace, Gemini. You're probably hearing about these things. So that means everyone has access to these tools, but you have to get a deeper level of acumen in using them. So build your AI literacy. And that's both in their proficiency to use those tools, but it's also going to be in some kind of certifications. So believe me, our classes are world class. You definitely want to do well on your classes, but it also means augmenting that with some additional certifications for things you're interested in. So look at LinkedIn Learning, look at Coursera. These are places that you can gain some of those certifications. I think it's going to be really important. Being a student, at least a postgrad student at Hult, you have full access to the Coursera catalog. That's a great opportunity for you to flex those skills. So build AI literacy. The second is build proficiency in data and analytics. And that means some coding is still very appropriate and needed. AI is nothing but data behind the scenes. That you're going to have more access to data, more access to be able to do things than ever before. That means you need the proficiency to know what to do with that. So data visualization tools like Tableau, which are free to use for a period of time and often free when you're taking these kinds of classes. Power BI would be another one. You need to at least have Excel skills to still manipulate that. And if you notice, a lot of these packages, you're now collaborating with a very natural language way to visualize data or to analyze data. You have to lean in, become proficient in the data and analytics side. And then the third, I think it's great news. Build your communication and collaboration skills. When you gain one of those credentials, which I know you're going to do, please post on LinkedIn, tell others that you've done that. Practice your communication skills, because your social influence and your social intelligence are really going to be another set of skills that you're going to need to bring that whole thing together. So I think that those are three things that you can do: build that AI proficiency, build your analytics, and build your communication skills. If I had to add one more, it's stay current. This space is changing so quickly. As I'm preparing for my classes each day, I always have to check the news. I have to check that there's new developments. So stay current on AI developments, including policy about what's going on wherever you are. Your local governments, your local communities are looking for leaders. So understanding what these implications are, you must participate. You cannot let this thing happen to you. You have to be one that is driving it forward. And so by putting those three tips together and then just staying aware about what's going on, I think is a formula for success.
Yeah, absolutely. And us as students have the opportunity here at Hult that not only we have Coursera courses to make, but also Data Camp, which is also a great tool for us to get certifications and publish it on LinkedIn or our resume, which looks pretty good for experience. And also the expert talks we have here in Hult. We usually have conferences to talk about these topics, to get to know a little bit more of what's going to be like or how it's at the moment. So it's really important. So, Professor, before we wrap up, we always ask this one final questions on our expert talk. What's your one piece of advice for students and professionals looking to drive in an AI-driven world?
Right. I forgot that this was a thing. This is the thing that I even tell in my classes all the time is be the goldfish. I have a graphic of two goldfish bowls. And there's a goldfish that's swimming in a smaller bowl, eyes a bigger bowl, and makes a leap from the smaller to the larger bowl. If you want to do something you've never done, you'll have to do something you've never done before. And that can be scary, taking that leap. That is the first part, is to move from your comfort zone and stretch yourself. to acquire some kind of new knowledge or skill or ability. And that's certainly one side of professional development. But you know what? The other side is you have to bring others with you. No leader leads themselves, they lead others. So once you grow in some way, you set some kind of new vision or goal or objective, and you bring others with you. And the bottom line is when you do that, you're often measuring something. This is where I am today. This is where I want to be tomorrow. I bet many of you go to the gym. You don't just go to the gym and work out. You're counting the number of reps so that you do more today than you did yesterday. And you will do more tomorrow than you did the day before. So the idea is to be that goldfish, stretch yourself, acquire some new skills, set a new mission vision for yourself, and bring others with you to change in a measured way. And I think this is the gift of an idea, of something to leave with everybody. Be the goldfish.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel that here in Hult, it gave us the opportunity also to have free time. So outside of classes, we have to take advantage of this free time to go to talks, to dig into more information, research, take more courses. So it's really important for us to take that in mind, also apart from classes. So absolutely agree on that. So, Professor, thank you for sharing and for making this such a valuable and insightful conversation. I don't know if you want to say something else.
Well, I was just going to agree with you. I mean, I know we're drawing to a close given the time that we have here, but here we are at the end of the year. I would just challenge everyone to not just be a passive experience today, but to choose one thing that they want to go and investigate in the new year. You know, it's coming up right around the corner. Most New Year's resolutions are broken, not because they didn't have good intent, but because they had poor follow through. Maybe you can relate if you chose to be more fiscally responsible and save money, or maybe be more social, or maybe be more healthy. So I think this is a perfect opportunity right now to really reflect on what you want to do next in this new year. It's right around the corner. And take our conversation today as an inspiration to choose just one thing that you want to dive into, and set a goal to have that complete by a date that you choose that's appropriate for you. I think that's a fantastic way to kick off this new year with a great start.
Yeah, absolutely. I suggest to you guys that you set goals for this new year because it's going to be great. And also to set goals to yourself because it's really important for us to challenge ourselves and to get out there and rock it. So thank you to our audience for joining us today in the Expert Talk episode. If you're curious about how Hult is preparing students and professionals to thrive in an AI-powered world, you'll find that AI isn't just a buzzword here. It's part of how we learn, collaborate, and innovate every single day. As mentioned earlier, today's session will be available to rewatch on demand through our YouTube channel. So feel free to revisit it or share it with someone who might find it useful. So wishing you all success as you navigate these exciting opportunities of an AI-shaped world. I'm gonna say bye bye everyone. Bye.